It is the morning, or it is, just kidding, it's 2 o'clock on April 3rd. And our power went out at 4 o'clock yesterday. So we are pushing 24 hours with no power. And we originally were just trying to push through and get through it. I'm gonna show you guys what we've been eating with no power, no heat, no propane, nothing. It's been really, it's been pretty crazy. It's getting worse and worse. The electric companies basically just put out a statement a couple minutes ago saying that to expect to be without power for another 2 to 7 days. There are miles and miles and miles of power lines that are down and transformers that completely blew up. They were on fire. Trees are down everywhere. If you follow me on Instagram, you saw that. We were actually at a family member's house when the storm hit, and we completely underestimated the storm. A lot of people did. And we're just rocking and rolling. So basically what we did for breakfast is we had leftover pizza from our family member's house. They sent us home with about half of the pizza. So we had this morning, and just some snacks like crackers and grapes and things. Apples. Storm was going to be done by 1 o'clock today. So the storm was already supposed to be over. But they updated the weather saying that it's supposed to keep snowing for another 3 days. So we didn't know that because all of our phones are dead. All of that thing. My brother-in-law actually just drove over here and was like, hey, do you guys know what's going on? I've been trying to get a hold of you guys, let you guys know the updated version of things, but he couldn't get a hold of us because all of our phones are dead. So thankfully he came and saved us. Him and my husband are going into town today to get some supplies and to stock up, and the plan is if we cannot get our household running with a generator and get our sub pumps working and all those things again, we are going to pack up all of our animals, all of our chickens, get everyone as settled in as we can. We'll probably get our chickens kind of locked in, lots and lots of water, lots and lots of food, and we are going to head out with the dogs for a couple of days, and we are just going to camp in at one family member's house. So I just fed the kids lunch. We were kind of waiting because we were expecting the power to be back on, but now that it's not. Had some Hawaiian rolls in the pantry. I only went to Aldi, did not do my Walmart order. So this is, I'm just working with about half of the groceries I would normally have. So we did sandwiches, grapes, carrots, pickles, sausages, cheese, bologna, cucumbers, pretzels, and some Cheez-Its. So very simple things. We've also been kind of eating off this carrot cake that I made for Easter. Here's our big box of MREs. You might have seen these during a pantry tour that I did, or a Homestead pantry tour with the canning things. We had a couple boxes of these. I pulled them up just in case we end up needing them. My husband and my brother-in-law ended up going and getting some space heaters, so we have 2 of these going, and the house is already significantly warmer, at least in these open areas of the living room and the kitchen. Obviously no power, stove isn't working, propane, nothing like that. So these are gonna keep the house warm, at least for right now. And then you're gonna have to excuse the mess and the terrible lighting, but we're keeping the curtains closed, trying to keep some heat in. And obviously I can't do anything about the lighting, but we went and picked up a couple of these little propane tanks. They're propane fuel tanks for the space heaters. My husband went and picked up a extra couple things of water. We do keep water in half-gallon mason jars on the storage shelf, but we picked up a couple more because they're saying that the power is probably going to be out for 7 days. They're saying at least 2 to 7 days. So this is just extra water because we definitely don't have enough for 2 to 7 more days. And then the very last thing, he went and picked up this camp stove, something for hot meals, and another 20-pound propane tank. We got our eggs going for breakfast this morning. This will be enough for everybody's home. The older girls had school today, so I opted to send them. But we got the generator up and running. Now camp stove is up and running, so at least we get a warm breakfast for the first time in 2 days. We got the camp stove going here. This looks absolutely ridiculous, but I've got my cast iron pan in there, trying to keep some sort of heat in there. I have butter in there right now. We're gonna make some quesadillas, so I pulled out some of my tortillas here. Also pulled some shredded cheese out of the freezer, and then I have this already cooked shredded turkey we put in the freezer March 1st, and I'm gonna use this as the meat in our quesadillas for lunch today. I'll sprinkle in a little bit of taco seasoning. We'll just have some shredded turkey and cheese quesadillas. We've got sour cream, we have salsa and chips, so that's gonna be lunch today. And then I pulled out this bag of chicken for dinner tonight, and I'm going to try to get this chicken thawed out so that I can get this cooking and shredded and set aside. And then that way when it comes time to make dinner tonight, I already have the cooked chicken and it's gonna be shredded and all that. And we're gonna make a gnocchi soup, like the Olive Garden shredded chicken gnocchi soup. I've got carrots all shred up. I've got spinach in the freezer. So that's gonna be dinner tonight. That's what the kids all really wanted for dinner tonight. I'm hoping I can do that on the camp stove. We're gonna see how that goes. We are hopefully getting power tonight. Our electricity company sent out a notification basically saying that they're trying to work in the most highly effective areas, or the most highly outed areas first, and that is our area. However, they're saying that if you're on a street with not a lot of houses, there's not a lot of things down there, you live rurally, you're gonna be last, which is us. There's only 2 houses on our street, and we have power lines down at the end of the street. They're literally laying in the field. They snapped off halfway through. If I have a picture, I can find a picture, I'll try to insert it, but if not, but it is bad. They are saying that as of right now, there are reported 1,500 power lines down. That's just what's reported. They're still finding poles down all over, and it's pretty bad. I think we're on day 3 of no power, so I'm really grateful for the camp stove. Joe's running out, and he's getting more little propane tanks. He's checking the garage, seeing what we have, because we do keep some on hand, but just trying to stay ahead of things. The generator's working awesome. We have 1 room running in the house, and then we opted to keep all the freezers running, 1 room running, and we're gonna do all the cooking on the camp stove, try to keep the stove off and the oven off, and just try to make it through for right now. But luckily I had on my meal plan 3 or 4 one-pot meals, so we're gonna do those. We're gonna do that soup, and I'm hoping that I can just use the crap out of my Dutch oven and out of my my cast iron pots and pans, and just get a lot of use out of them, try to make it through, and then be really grateful for a really delicious casserole that we'll make in the oven once the power gets turned on. So that's what we're working on today. That's planned. Quesadillas for lunch, hopefully some shredded chicken, gnocchi, Olive Garden soup for dinner tonight, and obviously we're not snacking. My snack jars were completely empty when the power went out, so that's kind of a bummer. So we're just eating off of our store-bought snacks right now and our fresh fruit and vegetables, and just trying to make it through. So that's kind of where we're at food-wise for at least right now. If there is anything I learned during this, it was that convenience things are so important. Just because I can make my own tortillas does not mean that I can't have store-bought tortillas in the house ready to go for situations like this, where either propane or electricity was very limited, and I needed to kind of strategize what was most important. So obviously I can make homemade tortillas, but in this situation where resources are limited, gas is limited, and you're trying to kind of conserve things, it was not ideal to make my own tortillas. So it was really nice to be able to pull out my store-bought ones, use these in an emergency. Same with my kids' snacks. You just heard all my snack jars were empty for the kids, so we ate through our store-bought things. So I just want to use this as an opportunity to say, just because you can make something from scratch doesn't mean that you can't have a store-bought option sitting on the shelf for a situation just like this, because you never know when you're going to need it. And I was so grateful that I had those things on hand for my family, and I will make sure that I have more things like that on the shelf to kind of help us get through situations just like this. Obviously, I never would have thought that we would go 7, almost 8 days without power, and having these store-bought things were a game changer, and not to sound super over dramatic, but kind of a lifesaver. Just mentally, everything becomes so much harder when you don't have these modern luxuries that we all just take for granted every single day. So being able to save my mental fortitude to solve other problems while my kids needed a snack and I could just go grab a box of Cheez-Its off the shelf or a box of graham crackers off the shelf and save kind of all that mental energy for problem solving bigger issues like learning how to hook up the generator, which we did at like 11:30 at night because my husband had to drive 2.5 hours away to go get this generator because obviously everything around us was sold out. Once the power company made the announcement that we were going to be without power for 2 to 7 days, it was kind of a free-for-all and everyone kind of went crazy, obviously. Everyone has a lot of food they're trying to keep cold. Everyone has families they're trying to keep warm. So generators that were around us completely sold out. I mean, in a matter of 2 hours from that announcement. So we ended up getting on a list and Joe had to drive 2.5 hours to get a generator. By the time he got back, it was like 11:30 at night. And by that point, we were almost headed into day 3 of no power. So just trying to get things kind of set up was a really big learning curve when you've never done it before. But we did end up hooking the stove up for this gnocchi soup. I didn't think that the camp stove would really be able to cook this very well, and this was something that my family just really wanted. So I made this on the stove, and then this isn't from that day, but this is a look of that soup. We didn't have bread, obviously, but I forgot to take kind of a video of the soup, so this is just an old video of that soup. Headed into the next morning, still no power, so I ended up the night before pulling out some breakfast sausage and getting that in the fridge to thaw overnight. So we had breakfast sausage for breakfast and, you guessed it, more eggs. Then for lunch, I ended up pulling out the cheddar brats that my son picked out from Aldi, and that turned out to be a huge lifesaver as well. Just having really easy proteins that we could just heat up. So I just ended up throwing these hot dogs on the stove or on the camp stove here, and I just grilled them up. So we ended up having hot dogs, and then we kept our sides unbelievably simple during this week. So we ate a lot of fresh vegetables and fresh fruits on the side. We also pulled out some of our canned applesauce and we ate a lot of that. So we kept our sides very simple and just things that really didn't need to be cooked, or we tried to do meals that were kind of like an all-in-one sort of thing. Obviously, we weren't eating a ton of cooked vegetables or anything like that during this week, so we really relied heavily on our fresh stuff, whatever I had gotten during grocery shopping. So a lot of carrots, a lot of apples, cucumbers, grapes, whatever berries we had. So just trying to keep things really simple, but this was lunch that day, just good old cheddar brats and whatever kind of fruit or vegetable each person wanted, or like I said, some of that canned applesauce that we had on the shelf. So that made things a lot easier being able to go back to the canning shelf. This is probably everyone's favorite meal that was made on the camp stove, and this is going to be kind of like a taco cheese dip. We make something very similar to this in our crock pot, but I decided, you know what, we're going to do this in a cast iron skillet on the camp stove today, and it worked out very well. I changed it a little bit from the recipe, but you got to do with what you have and what works for you and just kind of convenience things. So I pulled out, this is 2 pounds of ground beef. We get our ground beef in 2-pound blocks, so that's why it's 2 pounds, but you can do 1 pound. And then while that was kind of browning with some taco meat on the camp stove, I sliced up a tomato and also some lettuce for our toppings, and we're going to be doing camp stove nachos. Very simple, very easy. So in the cast iron skillet with my ground beef, all I put in was our taco meat. I threw in probably about a half cup of our home canned salsa, and then I started throwing in all of my husband's discount cheese and whatever I had in the fridge. I just kind of did a mix of cheeses, and then he had this big bag of like melted queso mix. It was kind of like a Velveeta style cheese, but so delicious, so easy. And the only thing I wish I would have had is like a can of beans or something, but I did not. I am going to start keeping some beans on the shelf. We don't use beans very often, but there have definitely been some times recently where I wish I had had a can or two, so we're gonna do. I haven't shown a lot of complete meals, but I'm gonna do that today. So this is our cast iron cheesy nacho meat mixture. Typically I would make this like in my crock pot, but this actually worked out really well. I think this is gonna make quite a bit. We'll be able to have it for lunch tomorrow as well, or snacks throughout the night. It's Friday night, so typically this would have been a night where we do pizzas, but I could have done pizzas on this. I definitely could have, but I just want to make this a little bit easier on myself. I'll wait until we have power back up and running, which according to the power company should be tomorrow, hopefully before dinner time. They're saying 3 o'clock, but we shall see. So I have my chips, my meat, and some of our home canned salsa, and a bunch of different cheeses that we had in the fridge. I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna grab just some fresh tomatoes and some fresh lettuce. This is just what we've got right now. Easy, really simple, and like I said, it'll be great because I can leave it out. We can grab seconds, thirds, whatever throughout the evening. Kids want more. My kids can also throw this meat mixture in a taco shell, soft shell, hard shell if they prefer that. Top it with the same toppings. Very easy, very simple, and great for leftovers heading into tomorrow, hopefully the last day of no power. So we shall see, but it's been quite the adventure for sure. I think I'm also gonna run out to the freezers and do some shopping, pull some meats out of the freezer. I do have chicken in my fridge. I'm gonna cook that up tomorrow. Definitely that will probably end up being lunch, if not dinner, just depending what I cook. It's going to depend on whether we have power and I can use the stove in the oven, or if I'm cooking on the camp stove again. So it just kind of depends, but right now this is very simple. I have some leftover soup from last night as well. So tomorrow's lunch will be a leftovers buffet. You can either do some lunch, or you can either do some soup, or you can do some of this. You can do it nachos, tacos, as a dip, whatever you want. And then breakfast, we will probably do more eggs. I think I'm gonna pull out some bacon because we did sausage this morning, so maybe I could do bacon and eggs, just trying to switch it up a little bit. I'm definitely ready to have power back on. I'm ready to get in the kitchen again and have like full range of things, but also super grateful for what we have, because we are set up and we're a lot more prepared than a lot of other people. So grateful for what we have, but still excited to get back to normal for sure after almost a week of trying to be very resourceful for what we have. So I'm gonna sit down and eat this, and hopefully we only have a couple more meals worth of this video. So here we go. So here is where we are currently at. It is beautiful. It's 50-some degrees. Colt and Joe actually had tickets for an event, so they went to that, and it's in a town where they never lost power due to the storm or anything, so they're perfectly good. We are in the last 3% of people who basically don't have power. Everybody else around us does. It's a very small portion of people who don't. We did go into town this morning to get breakfast. Originally they were saying power is going to be restored around 3, then they pushed it to 6. We are at that point. We still don't have power, and I just got off the phone with Joe. He really wants to just have a cold cut sandwich. We are just gonna do cold cuts for dinner tonight. That's what Joe really wants. So he's running into the local grocery store, which has had power for a while. It's basically just us rural people who don't have power at this point. He's gonna run in and grab sub rolls, hoagie rolls, and a bag of chips. We're gonna keep it really simple tonight, really easy, and then we'll also have extras. That way, I'm going to assume that we're not going to have power tonight and probably not have power tomorrow, which would be really, really unfortunate. That would be pushing us at day, I don't even know, day 6 with no power, which is fine. But just giving us options, moving ahead with things that we can do. That way tomorrow we'll have easy lunches. I do have leftovers from last night that we did, so we can have some of those taco meats with some chips and dip and sandwiches, and it'll be a really good easy thing to roll into tomorrow if we continue to not have power. So you guessed it, another day with no power. We started off this morning. I went ahead and started the generator. It had been really warm the day prior, and that night we had talked about that a little bit, so we opted to turn the generator off at night because it had been pretty much running for like 4 or 5 days straight. It's hard to keep the days straight, so it had been running for a couple days straight at least, so we had turned it off at night, and when everybody woke up we would get it started. So I went ahead and started the generator, and then got my kitchen up and running, and then I started making some Belgian waffles. I had never made this recipe before, but I wanted to use my waffle maker, just kind of have everything in one mess, get away from the camp stove a little bit, and just utilize a different piece of equipment that we had, and just try to be a little bit more prepared if this were to ever happen again, what I can do and what I can't. So I mixed up this Belgian waffle mix. I will link this recipe down below. It was actually very tasty. The waffles were very light, very fluffy, probably due to this baking powder here, but very, very delicious, super easy as well. I can see myself having this mix kind of on hand in a mason jar or something on the shelf, and then just adding in my milk and my vanilla to it, and just kind of being able to throw it together very quickly. This made enough for all 6 of us to eat breakfast, so if you're wondering how much it will feed or how much it makes, I think it ended up making 8 waffles, 10 waffles, something like that. So very awesome, but I just pulled out my waffle maker here and started whipping out waffles, and it was very simple, very easy. I did overflow my waffle maker a little bit, so that's unfortunate. I had a little bit of a mess to clean up, but very simple, very easy, and it made for a different kind of breakfast because we had been eating a lot of eggs this week just because they were so easy to do in the cast iron skillet. So very easy, and I liked that I was able to do something a little bit different and also try a new recipe, and just become a little bit more aware of what is possible and what I can do during, you know, like a power outage, and just trying to be a little bit more knowledgeable and a little bit more creative. Then heading into lunch, we still did not have power, so I pulled out this, what is it, a Voila freezer convenience meal thing. We have not eaten these in years, you guys, years, and I'm telling you, nobody was very impressed. Not one person was very impressed with how this tasted, but I wanted a easy meal. The day prior, we had went into town. I got stuff to do s'mores and this convenience meal kit because I had a suspicion that we weren't going to have power, and I wanted something easy. So this is what we had for lunch, and that was a full week of no power with meals.